suddenly, just shortly after I'd taken up the kart racing, so that set me back, and I didn't go racing again until I acquired a Formula Ford back in 1987, and I haven't looked back, as you might say.
For Derek Walsh, motor racing is a newfound hobby, and for the park he doesn't have to travel too far.
I just live across outside the Castleknock gates right next door, so it's home ground for me. Rattra Corner holds fond memories for me in that I rolled the car, but thankfully it landed back on all four wheels, and I succeeded in finishing the race and was very happy in the result. The team worked very hard through the night and was able to race again on the Sunday.
I think the amazing thing about that incident, it was a pretty spectacular roll, but you seem to recover immediately from it.
Well, I have to be quite honest about it, Plum, in that it happened so quick, and looking back on it afterwards, it certainly does look spectacular, but when it happened at the time, it happened so quick that I didn't really realise that it was finished. It was over and done in seconds.
And who will you be particularly looking out for in the opposition?
David Wright is alongside me. He's had a very good run of victories recently. I think he's won 3 of the 4 races run so far. He'll certainly be a danger. The 2 boys behind me are, well, Vivian Daly. He's been the #1 dog in Irish Formula Ford for the last 2 or 3 years, so I mean, he really will be a big danger.
I've had 3 wins, a second and a third in 5 outings, so I've always been there or thereabouts, and it's always been good to me, this place.
Well, I've won the park twice, and you got to remember that. Tommy's put the cat among the pigeons. It's good to see it happening. Guy tries hard. He's tried hard all year, so all we can do is hope everything goes well for him today.
Well, practice was a bit of a problem. It was quick enough right through the last couple of laps, and I lifted off to try and get a tow or a slipstream from another car, and it just didn't work out, and everyone else banged in a very quick lap in the last lap, so I'm back in the 4th row.
What's the opposition in Derek's 2-litre class in the Saloons?
Well, I think my biggest rival would be Frank O'Rourke. Frank is back after an absence, and he wasn't involved in the same class as myself last year. He was involved in the 2 to 3 litre class, but he's driving his son's Tomas's car in the park this year, so he's a main rival. Also John Hayes, which was my idol.
We have a lot of races which are hard and tough, and you know, best man always wins. I think he this year so far is the best man.
I think Derek, he's been driving very well since he got the Golf. He's been going pretty well, but I think at the end of the day, this car in the park would have the legs on the Golf, like, you know.
Tony Brennan must also be considered, but out front it will be a race between the Sierra Cosworths and the BMW, and an eventful one at that, if yesterday is anything to go by. Michael Leonard is fitting a new gearbox, John Burns has to put new electrics in his Cosworth, and Holfield's also had problems. Oh, but that's no way to treat a beautiful BMW.
It's not, no. Unfortunately, we had a serious mishap yesterday. As you know, the circuit is extremely quick this year. We were doing about 150 miles an hour coming into Mountjoy. Gordon Kellett and myself left braking very, very late, and unfortunately I had half lost the car, almost got around the corner. Gordon left his braking very late and ran into the side of the car. This is the result. Pure racing accident. Nobody was at fault or to blame.
Peter Faulkner and his Sierra is the big success story of the park so far. Peter, I suppose we could say you've got plenty to blow about after yesterday's victory.
Yeah, it was a great race. It was a pity about John Burns. It looked like it was going to be a cracker of a race, but John seemed to have a problem off the start line. We touched going up the straight. I ended up on the grass, and I went down to 3rd place. But I made back to 2 places, and John pulled in. It was a fairly handy sort of a win after that.
But the next race, is it going to be the Cosworths out front again?
Yeah, the format for the next race is that each of the 6 fastest cars overall will be team leaders, and the teams will be made up of 3 cars in each. It'll be a scratch start, so it'll be the race all over again.
The Fiat or Fiatnams, as they have been appropriately christened, act as a warm-up to the afternoon's attractions. And it's the Mervyn Miller and Eugene Ward show all over again. But look at this red kamikaze pilot coming down the outside. What corner? Nobody told Kevin Byrne that he had to turn right. By Monument and lap 3, Miller and Ward have broken away a little. Then at Mountjoy, the two leaders are out ahead, but watch third place, because that's Des Cullen in his astonishing 30th park race sneaking through, and from the back row of the grid. The race is sponsored by Fiat Genuine Parts, and by the look of it, they're going to need some of them. And wonder why it's called Vietnam? Watch this. Well, it's that man Ward at it again. Now it's almost showdown time, and the pressure is high before the start of the feature race.
Just thinking about it, I didn't get much sleep last night. I was thinking about it all the time. I've been on pole before last year in the festival, so it won't be a new thing to me starting on the front row. But at the same time, I never had the class of opposition that I have right behind me today.
The Formula Ford warm-up is the last chance to check everything. Derek Jolly might be described as Tommy's minder, and he knows what an important occasion this is for the young driver. This is a very big day for Tommy.
It's a very big day. It's probably the greatest day in his career, short career to date. And this could be hopefully a turning point, prove how good he is, because he is good.
Is the nerve going to hold out to enable you to stay here at Mountjoy for the race?
I'm not too sure. I think I shall have to go in and get some sustenance.
But first it's saloon time and the eagerly awaited Nixdorf Group N race. On the warm-up lap, Derek Walsh reminds us that this place has to be taken gently.
I think you have to have a lot of respect for road racing, there's no doubt about that. Anybody that goes out there with a nonchalance attitude is very foolish. But having said that, when you get behind the wheel, there's only one thing in mind, and that's just to get moving.
8 laps lie ahead with this interesting team handicap incorporated in the race. On the rush down to Mountjoy, team leader Frank O'Rourke is on the left. Tony Brennan has moved across us in the Golf GTI. And Ken Grundy's BMW is another problem. But out front it's Faulkner, Burns, Hallfield, Leonard, Tuttle, Kellert, O'Rourke, and then that man Brennan directly in front of the camera car. Now the BMW has the acceleration on this very fast backstretch. And this is the part that the drivers are always glad to get through. You're traveling at almost 120 miles an hour at this point. Ratra, and Faulkner has a big lead, but almost overshoots. Burns is in second place, then the BMW, and then the 3 Sierra Cosworths. And there's our team leader, Frank O'Rourke. Back inside, we're heading up towards Monument through the flat-out left-hand kink, and that BMW is really on the ragged edge. Now this is a new corner, an awkward approach, and then down into a second-hand long right-hander round the Phoenix Monument. Very bumpy at this part, but we certainly have the legs on the BMW and the twisty bits, but he gets away under acceleration as we head down the back straight again. By lap 2 at Mountjoy, Faulkner has a good lead, but overshoots. And away go 1, 2, 3, 4 places. So Faulkner rejoins just ahead of Kellett. Meanwhile, back at Ratra, Burns is really on the ragged edge. Second place, it's Hallfield, then a very smoky Tuttle, followed by Mick Leonard, Faulkner, Kellett, and back at Monument, we see Burns really driving, hanging the front left wheel over the curbs, and already there are back markers to deal with. Look at the background, though. Faulkner's gone up a place, and here goes Tuttle for second place. So Reg Tuttle, in the car that he's just hired for the weekend, having a superb run there, number 3. That's our team leader, who's well in charge of the 2-litre class. And here's Mick Fitzgerald in the now aging Capri, finding that the road holding just doesn't match up to the modern machinery. Back at Mountjoy, and now the BMW under pressure, and Leonard this time overshoots. The Sierra Cosworths having trouble getting stopped from that long, long straight. Back in the Gulf Wars, we've a new BMW problem, and that belongs to Keith Morley. But Derek Walsh deals with it very nicely going inside. Let's look at that again from inside the car. There's Morley just overtaking us in the straight, and Walsh dives for the inside, forcing the BMW out over the curbs and consequently retains his place. At Monument, Hallfield is still under pressure from the Sierra Cosworth. And the Gulf War is still as hot and heavy as ever. And this is Tuttle going for the lead, but it's all been thrown away and he's stalled the Cosworth. Burns is out in his own now, but you wouldn't think it to watch his driving. And there's Faulkner now up into second place. Tuttle has a major problem. The turbo's blown as Kellett follows him through. Back inside the Gulf, we're getting very close now to the opposition. You can see that Tony Brennan has really been harassed here as we go through the kink once more towards Monument. Watch for his braking point. And Brennan desperately late on the brakes that time, locking the rear wheels and cocking the inside rear wheel way up in the air. This is back at Mountjoy, and that's left man Morley in problems again. The Pico's car goes onto the grass, but keeps the shoe in it. From inside, once again, we get this personal view. No sign of the BMW at this point, and suddenly it's come right up our right, forcing us onto the grass. Walsh keeps the foot flat down, one of the flag marshals diving for cover. McMahon, the third member of the team, in the BIF Honda. Down he comes down into Rattray under big pressure from Mike Armstrong. And Armstrong taking the place. Mann's in a nasty position there, but manages to get going without too much time loss. Down into Rattray again, and once again, Morley is the problem. This time, a little bit of not too gentle assistance sadly still doesn't work. And Tony Brennan is disappearing towards Monument. So as the Pico's car heads for home, John Burns has won, and Peter Faulkner's drive up to second place gives him the Nixdorf Trophy. Congratulations.
Good fight, lad.
You're in the champagne anyway.
Well, we are all right. Unfortunately, we were beaten by a few points, Plum, but I mean, we tried hard, and after all, we did get third to the Cosworths. We were the baby team.
And so to the big one, the Formula Ford 1600 race. For Tommy Burke, the next few moments are vital. And sadly, those moments are very sad indeed, because Burke has been swallowed up in the pack as they head for the fearful Mountjoy. It's David Wright out front. Johnson's there, Daly's there, Burke's back in about 5th place. And this is McGarity coming down the outside. Miraculously, everybody gets through. And Derek Jolly sadly does not have to be reminded of what he's just seen. At Rattray, it's David Wright being harassed now by the young Alistair Johnston in 2nd place. Then the very experienced Colin Lees in the Mondial in 3rd place. At Monument, it's the same order. Tommy Burke there in 5th place, followed by the young Morgan Dempsey. 2nd time, heading towards Mountjoy. Colin Lees having a go down the inside for 2nd. And getting it. Back at Rattray again, and David Wright can't shake off the pursuing pack, particularly with Colin Lees in the chase. Monument, same order, and it's very close indeed.
And David Wright has pulled out quite a lead.
Back at Mountjoy and Vivian Daly making an attack down the inside. Alistair Johnson goes inside again, and there's Tommy Burke coming right round both of them. Up in the curbs, but he's lost it, and he's lost at least one of those places. Now David Wright has broken free. And look there. Yes, indeed, Robert Ryan has gone round, lost a couple of places at the back of the field, but rejoins undamaged. Mountjoy once again. David Wright has gone through. This is the battle for second place, and Tommy Burke's been hit. It must have been by Vivian Daly. He's losing stacks of places. Oh, what a shame.
That's the way of it, I suppose. He was unlucky, he was going quite well. He just got Vivian Daly, I think, up his back end. Knocked him around. I think we're for the minor places now. Let's hope we keep going anyway, that's the main.
We're back at Ratra, and we're counting off those places, and Tommy Burke is back in 15th place, and that's an awful lot of leeway to make up. But others have bigger problems. Derek M. Daly has come to a grinding halt. The car's not damaged, but it's not going to move any further, and he's in a fairly dangerous position. As the tail-enders file through, they push the Reynard away into a safer place. Lap 8, and we're at Mountjoy, and it's still David Wright in a commanding lead. Alistair Johnson in second under pressure from Lees, and there's Brendan McKenna coming into the picture, and that's young McGarrity who's got a bit wide there. Amongst the second pack, it's Robert Ryan who's into the barrier. And it's just not been his day. Back at Monument, there's a new leader, Alistair Johnston, but Brendan McKenna's bid in the next corner doesn't come off. Tommy Burke, there he goes, gradually making up places. But at Ratra, it's Colin Lees now in command, with Alistair Johnson really battling it out, as Martin Donnelly Sr. and Alistair's father watch eagerly.
Watch it, come on in!
Johnston's gone, and so is Lees. The front two are out. Oh, what a tragedy. Harry is not pleased, but looking at the replay, you will notice that the Mondial suddenly slowed, and Alistair Johnston had no option but to go over it. But what a sad end for the young up-and-coming driver. Now he's got another problem.
How are you getting home by?
Meanwhile, out front, it's Brendan McKenna, and young Morgan Dempsey is really beginning to show now in second place. This is Dempsey challenging for the lead. In third place, you've got Edgar, and fourth, McGarrity. At Ratra, it's the same. McGarrity goes up the inside. And Tommy Burke making up places all the time. He's now in 8th place. McKenna overcooks it. This is the last lap. Morgan Dempsey Jr. leads. McGarrity is second. It's going to be a sensational finish. And the problems aren't over amongst the back markers. Oh, John Whelan and Francis Prendergast have a big one at Mountjoy. Fortunately, the Nace driver is perfectly okay, but his laser is far from fit. So Morgan Dempsey comes up to take a historic win here at Phoenix Park. Surely one of the youngest drivers ever to do it. To take your first ever win on the big race is quite sensational. And Tommy Burke, well, ending up in 7th, not too bad.
I don't suppose even in your wildest dreams you would have been expecting this moment.
No, I never dreamt of winning the park. Well, I did, but it was sort of a dream, as I said. And, you know, even up until when I was coming into the paddock after race, I thought I'd finish second. And then to be told I won, you know, I was just over the moon, delighted.
Did you not realise the leader had gone?
No, because I saw Colin Lees's car, but I never saw Alistair's car, so I presumed that Alistair got a break. And I was dicing for second, and I was just happy to hold that second. And to, you know, my thoughts were to finish second in the park was brilliant, but then to hear that I'd won, I was just over the moon, delighted.
And there's another winner. Kevin McGarrity's storming drive with real Gibson flair gets him the Gary Gibson Memorial Trophy. But one person not on the rostrum after a weekend that had promised so much, Tommy Burke. Naturally, he was deflated.
Yes, I am a bit disappointed, all right, because I look upon what might have been now, but these things happen, and there'll be other days, and we'll do the business some other day.
Disappointment for Tommy Burke, but far from it for Derek Walsh and the thousands who enjoyed the free next-door Phoenix Park weekend.
The great sporting occasions in the Irish sporting calendar. And incidentally, Martin Donnelly, who was a winner in the Phoenix Park some years ago, he's finished 11th in the first practice session for tomorrow's Monaco Grand Prix. And we've no news yet, unfortunately, of how he fared in today's final session, but we do know that Ayrton Senna will have pole position in his McLaren. And he'll share that front row of the grid with his former colleague in the McLaren. That's Alain Prost, who's now the reigning world champion in a Ferrari. And behind them will be Jean Alesi and Riccardo Patrese. From one sort of motor...
Red Ferraris and glamorous ladies. Mind you, there is one bunch of people who would rather not be in Monaco on race weekend, and that's the drivers themselves. The modern Grand Prix car has outgrown in power the Principality's narrow street circuit, forcing the drivers to take chances they might not otherwise do. Still, it's a fact that the accidents and incidents are all part of what makes Monaco so exciting for the fans, and last weekend was no exception. The commentators at the start of the race are Murray Walker and James Hunt.
Senna is just 1 point.